believed to be alive.
Right, and officials say one person has been killed and 26 others injured after a night of intensive Russian strikes in almost every district in the Ukrainian city of Kyiv. Well, Ukraine says Russia fired a record 539 drones and 11 missiles, some against its air defenses. We have details in this report.
Just before Russia started striking Kyiv, President Vladimir Putin had a telephone conversation with the U.S. President Donald Trump, during which President Trump said he was disappointed that the Russian leader was not ready to end the war against Ukraine. Russia says the war will continue for as long as it is necessary to reach its objective. Ukraine's Air Force say 72 of the 539 drones launched by Russia penetrated the country's air defenses. According to Ukrainian authorities, the overnight strikes damaged railway infrastructure, while schools, residential buildings and cars were set ablaze across Kyiv. In neighboring Poland, the foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, says the Polish consulate was also damaged by Russia's latest drone strike. In a post on Telegram, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has once again demonstrated that it does not intend to end the lingering war. The Ukrainian president called on international allies, particularly the US, to increase the pressure on Russia and to impose greater sanction on the nation. Last week, the US decided to halt some shipments of critical weapons to Ukraine, including those used for air defenses. Ukraine has warned that the move by the US to pause some shipments of weapons would impede its ability to defend itself against escalating strikes and Russian advances on the front line.
Right, and to discuss the lingering war between Russia and Ukraine, I bring in virtually now Global Affairs analyst Kun Falawa, who joins me from Indianapolis in the United States. We thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Falawa. So first off, regarding Ukraine's request for this Patriot missiles, what are your thoughts? It appears there is a green light now from the U.S. president.
Thanks for having me. So the Patriot system is very essential. Not only essential, it's very instrumental in the, particularly in the air defense system of the Ukrainian territory. It must be said that the Russian side has been bombarding the Ukrainian air system with different types of missile, allegedly over 500 of them, and this has led to unnecessary killing again in the Ukrainian territory. And one of the only ways that the Ukrainian government and the people of Ukraine, and particularly the military, the only way that they could use to defend themselves is to have the Patriot system that is capable of shutting down those missiles that's been sent from Russia. And this is particularly interesting because if you look at the American side, the American government are basically saying, I mean, we're going to have to pause shipments momentarily until we're able to stockpile our side and make additional ones in order for not to deplete the already existing ones on their side. So that is perfectly understandable, but there are some other nuances and other political undertones to those intentional delay in the shipment of the Patriot missile. But nonetheless, we're seeing some green lights from the Trump administration, who's promising that they will continue to send those very essential Patriot missiles to intercept all of those bombardment from the Ukrainian Russian side.
Right, and there's also the perception by Donald Trump about the unwillingness of Vladimir Putin to end the war anytime soon. In his words, he just apparently wants to go on killing people, describing the Russian leader. So how do you also wade in, so to speak, into this lingering conflict and getting both sides to agree to a definite ceasefire?
Well, It's not going to be a walk in the park. Russian president is very hell bent on making sure that he attains his goal, and part of the goal is to have um, Ukraine be submerged and under its rule and leadership. And part of it is also to make sure that Ukraine never joins NATO. And um, and that is also something that the European allies are very afraid of, and and understandably so, because if you look at it critically, the hypothesis is if Russia is able to uh, defeat Ukraine and the people of Ukraine, and he takes over the country, so to speak, what's going to be the fate of other little countries or other smaller countries in and around the Ukrainian side, Lithuania, some other small European country who are unable to defend themselves or who doesn't have enough military capabilities to withstand the force and the aggressive nature of the Russian side. And that is very instrumental. And part of the reason they're all coming out to particularly come together and support Ukraine and Ukrainian democracy. I would say that the European side, interestingly, they've somewhat increased their support and particularly spending towards defending Ukraine. But be that as it may, when we're looking at a holistic way to solve this lingering crisis, this war between Russia and Ukraine, a lot of people are advocating that there should be more punitive economic sanctions for Russia, and that would temporarily cripple the economy and will somewhat affect the Russian president and the people of Russia, and that way those economic policies will mount pressure for the people to kind of start feeling the bites of this war. Aside from that, if there aren't any form of punitive measure like that, I'm afraid that we will continue to witness unwanted, unnecessary deaths in the hands of the Russian aggressive nature.
Right, but then do you really think it's that simple? This prospect of tougher sanctions on Russia, if it was that simple, what is stopping the rest of the world, especially the superpowers, in not having done that earlier?
Well, part of the reason is with every government, with every uh, folks to come in, they tend to have different ideas and different ways that the perception out as of how Russia has been viewed across the world. Let's not forget that Russia is a powerful country led by Vladimir Putin, and not just a powerful country, is it's a country that it's been ingrained in the world economy, and they have great missiles. They have a lot of possibilities, and it's a very rich country. It's got oil, it's got a lot of resources, and it's been able to integrate themselves and have partners across the world. We're looking at China, we're looking at North Korea. So they're really ingrained themselves, with other world powers, and they're well positioned um, in the spectrum of power. So it's very difficult to kind of put them on the side or shift them on the side because it's a very powerful country. So some of those ideas or some of
Right.
those ways that you could interact with them and get them to come to the negotiating table or economic sanctions and things like that. But be that as it may, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
But a lot of countries, especially the United States, are looking at Russia instead of pouncing on them with economic sanctions. They're trying to partner with them in other ways because they're also a powerful country.
Indeed.
So the approach that President Trump is using is trying to be friends with them and not be friends with them at the same time.
All right.
So it's kind of different, and that's part of the reason every other country are trying as much as they can to be very careful as far as dealing with Russia as a country, and particularly Vladimir Putin.
Right. Koul Fowler, let me ask that you all hold on. We'll take a break and continue the conversation when we return. Please stay with us. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching The World Now on TVC News, and we've been speaking about the lingering Ukraine-Russia conflict. The global affairs analyst for this hour is Kun Falawa, who joins me from Indianapolis in the United States. Thanks a lot for holding on. Right. So in terms of a last-minute option, if I follow your earlier analysis regarding the timing when sanctions, heavy sanctions will be appropriate if and when we get to that point on Russia. Looking at the trajectory now, Donald Trump and his patience wearing thin, do you think we are nearing that point?
Interestingly so. It seems like it's beginning to look like it. But part of the reason I said that is because with I think it was the recent phone call between Putin and President Trump didn't go well. That was not what he anticipated. And it seems like he's starting to get wary, and his perception, he's starting to see that Vladimir is not someone that can be toyed with, and someone that can be, just easily swayed. There has to be something very concrete. There has to be something very, very strong, and not just. He's not that type of personality that could be handled with kid's glove. I think he's starting to see the necessity of being a little bit more tougher and not very mild and gentle and just cordial as he was initially anticipating, that just having just a regular conversation with Vladimir Putin would automatically end the war. Apparently, it's not looking like that. So yes, when we're starting to see that the Trump administration is having a difficulty talking about peace and negotiating a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, they will have to be forced to reconsider other plans, and part of those plans will be looking at other avenues to hurt the Russian economy, and that would be, economic sanctions.
Right, and then finally, we are also seeing, or rather, let me ask, what you make of this kind of involvement of U.S. in the dynamics of the war between both nations, or the conflict, so to speak. Right now, Ukrainian's president is talking about joint production, saying U.S. needs it. Ukraine also needs, this kind of joint production deal of weapons that will help Ukraine in this conflict. I'm asking now what you think about the U.S. involvement now that it's coming with some terms.
Well, I would also mention that the role of America in world economy and world, negotiations generally for peace, it's not a kid's role. It's been right after the Second World War, America has kind of taken a very big position in mediation and world order and world peace. Nothing is going to change that. Not too long ago, there was a recent signing a deal between the Ukrainian side and the United States, and that entails, well, continue to support us, and we will continue to provide, ammunitions and missiles or whatever you need to protect yourself, and that's part of the deal. And in return, the Ukrainian government is sending a lot of rare earths minerals to the United States. So sometimes it could be very it could be something that it's both parties, both entities will benefit hugely from.
Right. We'll have to rest our conversation at this point. Koul Fowler, thank you very much for speaking with us on TVC News.
Thank you very much for having me.
Moving on.